Have you ever been called a band geek, a theater nerd, cyber dork, studio rat, gamer punk, orchestra dork, book monkey, drama jock, Poindexter, artsy fartsy, or just plain weird? Well then, welcome to Art Nerds. This is the podcast where we sit down with our nerdy friends, embrace our inner geek, and celebrate our art. And welcome back, my friends. This is Art Nerds. This is the place where we talk to our nerdy friends about their artwork. Today with me in the dining room, I have the love of my life. This is my wife, Jenna Kyle O'Brien. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
I'm glad to hear it. Jenna is an artist, and I'm going to let her talk about what is your art.
Well, we were just chatting about that, and I would say that my art is, truthfully, I like a lot of different things. Music is my passion. I think I've had it since I was very, very young. And I grew up in a musical family. And so I think I was always going to be a musician. As a matter of fact, I tried to deny it at one point. Yeah.
Why on earth would you deny that?
It wasn't really a denial. It was just not a belief that I could be successful at it or be good at it. And so, like, growing up, I was involved in music. I mean, I remember elementary school and my teacher there and singing. And I remember a lot of details about elementary music. So I know that I had that love of music early on. And I grew up in a family that listened to all different kinds of music. My mother was a music major in school, and so I had that influence all the time, and I loved singing and playing instruments, and I played the oboe for 12 years, and I sang, and I loved being on stage and singing in musicals and things like that. So, but then when I came time for me to go to college, I was like, everybody kept saying, you know, I wanted to be a music major, and everybody kept saying, "Oh, no, don't do the you don't have any piano skills." That was the one thing I didn't have, which I didn't. I never took piano lessons. I was the youngest of 5 kids, and it was like one of those things, like not really raise yourself, but it was like I kind of did my own thing, and
you didn't have the same kind of attention as a only child would get.
Right.
Okay. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So, I never took piano lessons, or I never, I never even thought to ask for piano lessons, truthfully. And I don't know why, but I just didn't. And, so it wasn't until I was like a senior in high school that I was like, I really should have taken piano. So I did try and teach myself how to play the piano a little bit in my senior year. My mom knew how to play, so she could help me out a little bit. But I remember she got me a book when I was in high school, The Flower Drum Song. It's a musical that a lot of people don't know, but
oldie but goodie, yeah.
And I learned I taught myself the music from that, and I knew how to read music because I had done band for so many years, and but I didn't have very much confidence. So when I went in to declare what my major was my freshman year, I declared English as my major because I also like to read like a fiend, and so I thought, well, that's something I could do, And so I was an English major for a half of a year, and I changed my major to music like after my first semester because I had auditioned for a choir. I thought I was auditioning just to be in a choir because I thought I still love music. I want to be part of the music program, or at least have music in my life. So I auditioned for the choir, and I thought, great if I get in. Well, there was three different choirs there. It was Eastern, and I ended up getting in the top choir. So I was like, "Ooh, that's great," And at the same time, apparently, I inadvertently auditioned for voice lessons. I didn't know I was doing that, but that's kind of typical of me. I don't always pay attention to the details of those things. And so I ended up getting accepted into Dr. June Johnson's voice class, and as a voice teacher, private voice lessons. And she told me they don't normally take non-majors, but they would only take like 1 or 2 non-majors a year. And so I felt pretty,
A little feather in your cap there.
I thought that was pretty cool, And it just took that and that experience of being in choir and taking voice lessons to be like, yeah, I'm going to do this, So then I just became a music major and an English minor instead. The piano was always a thorn in my side in my entire college career. I had to take class piano with people, and that had been taken for like all their life
Right.
up to that point. And here I was plunking away and I really didn't get it. And, it was just like, oh man, I just wished I'd had better experience in that respect, And the sad part about that is that it really did affect my career in a lot of ways because I didn't have that confidence level, even after going through college and, building my vocal skills and building my performance skills. It was one of those skills that I felt like, man,
Now, let me ask you this. Was this one of those things that the professors kept saying, you need piano skills, or because you're an amazing vocalist and you're a great performer?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically. I mean, like I had teachers say, it's going to be really hard if you try to go. You might not, like I had people say that to me. Yeah, like you're going to need piano skills in order to be successful at that.
But you're successful at it.
I am now, but that's because I've been practicing it for a long time.
Right.
And I was successful as a vocalist. Now, my degree is in music education. Mm-hmm. Because, again, one of those things where, I trained as a classical vocalist. I mean, I can do opera and all that good stuff. And I really enjoyed that. But the lifestyle of that, I think, I just don't have a competitive edge in terms of that. I don't know why. I just don't. I never had that.
Yeah, I see. I mean, I'm the same way in the sense that I used to be an actor, but I don't like auditioning. I don't like that competition aspect.
Yeah.
And it's
that one.
It has nothing to do with me as a person.
Yeah. I mean, I still love the art. I still love to sing. I still love to sing opera. I still like to, I enjoy that. I do miss performing a little bit, but that also made me a little bit,
it's tense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tense. I got better at it though throughout, after I left college, I did more performing and things like that. And so I did feel more comfortable and better at that aspect of it. But yeah, so I was a music ed major because, most people tell you, oh, you're never going to make it in performance, like that. It's really hard.
Blah.
It's like a hard way to go, So it was always like, oh, that's the backup. And, again, I didn't have those piano skills and everybody's like, oh, teaching, you're going to need piano skills, and, had a terrible experience with student teaching. And it was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. So when I graduated from college, I went on and just did my own thing with music. Like I performed, and we moved to St. Louis, and you did your theater stuff, and I did my. I decided I'm not going to wait around because you had a lot of stuff going on, and you were doing a lot of performances and a lot of late nights and stuff like that. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to do my own thing with music and theater. And I took a theater class and I auditioned for.
You did a couple shows down there?
Yeah, I did some shows. That was kind of fun. I did a show at St. Louis Community College. That was fun. And I got to meet some people in the community. And then I got in with a group of people that were, it was the St. Louis Chamber Chorus. and it was led by this British guy and his name was Peter. I can't remember his last name now, but he was the director, and I got in as not a substitute, but as a, like as an alternate kind of performance, and loved that group, and I performed with them for a while, and then I think we ended up moving.
Right.
But that was a fun experience because I got to meet a lot of people, and I started taking voice lessons with. That was another thing that I thought was important. I continued, developing my voice and performance with Dr. Susan McDuffie, who was teaching at St. Louis University at the time. So she took me on as a student, and that was really when my voice started to change, or when I started to understand my voice a lot better. And she taught what they call the natural singing style. Like all the way through college, I struggled with the muscles part of my voice and just sort of forcing a different voice out, because that's one of the things that as a voice teacher myself, I really stressed not to do that, because it's to understand your own personal voice and work with what you've already got, because it's kind of, when you teach voice too, so
I teach speaking
the same
voice.
thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
The same thing. So, I feel like through college, I managed to learn techniques, like breathing techniques and all those kinds of things. But I was creating a voice rather than understanding, how to use my
It sounds like
my real voice.
it sounds like
I'd like to develop that.
And as an equivalent, it sounds like I teach voice and diction, and I teach them, learn what your real voice is, learn what you naturally do on a daily basis, then learn to manipulate it for other things.
Right.
Character work or, what have you. But it sounds like you learn the character work first.
Yes, in a sense, because it's like you're singing like, your teacher says they want you to sing this stuff, and you're kind of more focused on learning the language, because you're learning different languages and you're learning how to express what, the poetry of it. So I think maybe my undergrad was really about that, was about learning how to tell the story.
Okay.
And really how to interpret it. So I did learn a lot about interpretation through that.
Right.
And the importance of knowing the story when you're singing. Like the storytelling aspect of it. So then when I got in with Susan McDuffie, I had a lot of stress on my voice. I could tell, because I would strain. My muscles would not always feel the greatest, when I get done singing, which I don't think is a good sign. I think that's a bad sign. So, so learning how to, relax my muscles and use them properly with Dr. McDuffie, that made a big difference in my voice. And I had people tell me after that they were like, "Oh my gosh, I really love your voice. It's so cool. Like it's so natural sounding. It's so open sounding." And I was like, yeah. And that was because I felt I understood it, which
it finally clicked in.
Yeah. And the thing is with voice is you really can't teach. Well, it's a hidden thing. You have to help people visualize what your mechanism looks like, what it's doing. How do I achieve that sound?
You have to close your eyes and feel it.
Yeah.
And feel the difference between tense and relaxed. Yeah.
And just know where the sound is going and how you're producing it. And so I became more technical about how I thought about the voice, but also being that in tune with your voice, it felt better. I could understand it better. And when I went to start teaching voice later on, I think that's the one thing, like it helped me to sustain my voice longer, felt like, it was just a healthier way. And so, and I preach that as a voice coach as well. It's like, you need to know how your voice produces sound and what's going on with your muscles when they're doing certain things, and like, pay attention if they're straining, pay attention if you're, and it's because it's just like anything else in your body. You have to warm it up, and you have to understand what the muscles are, and you have to stretch them gradually, and you have to, and you have to work them out like regularly in order for them to work.
It's like any other athletic activity.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, I always do that when I talk to my kids at school. And I teach kindergarten through third grade, so you're thinking, what are you teaching them about the technical aspects of singing? But I mean, that's when it starts. You got to know what you're doing. But I always tell them, I said, singing is like, it's like sports. You got to, in order to produce those sounds, you have to work your muscles, right? You do warm-ups, right? Your coaches have you do that, and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, that's the same thing with singing. I said, you have to do warm-ups, and you have to do it, and you practice it in order to get it. Yep. So I think that particular part of my training was really, really important, and I was able to. I remember shortly after that, we still lived down in St. Louis, and you were at SIUE, and I ended up getting into an opera. I had not ever been in like a full length opera kind of situation, but SIUE was doing Marriage of Figaro.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so I got up to play the Countess in the Marriage of Figaro. And truthfully, when you're, like when you're doing a college type production, it's not like if you were going to be on stage at the Met, like on the stage of the Met, you would sing one night and you'd have a rest night and you'd sing again. And, like you'd have rest in between, because it is very demanding on your voice and physically, just physically demanding. And so I remember that process, and my voice was fine all the way through it. Really? I didn't really feel like it was fatigued in any way. And it worked quite well all the way through that. So.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, like, in the opera world, like they are very, of course you're probably doing a lot more shows than we did. We did, one weekend.
Right.
I mean, or two. I can't remember how long that particular run was, but yeah, normally it would not be if you were a professional singer, you'd sing and then you'd have a good rest day in between.
Right.
Before you sing again. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Now I know you've been a musician.
Yes.
Your primary vocation.
Yes.
However, you are an artist in other realms as well.
Yes, I am.
You're supposed to tell us about it here.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So basically, I started with the music business, and I. Even though I did not go into teaching music right away, because I didn't feel like I was qualified to do that at the time when I was 22. I went on and did, office work and things like that. But I came back to it as a teacher. Like I taught voice for several years, and then I started teaching piano, and basically beginning piano. And then I just got better and better at that. But then, living with an artist and what I mean, like a maker artist, like you're a maker.
Yes.
You do things, you build things with your hands and whatnot. So I've always loved art as well. I took art classes when I was in, middle school and whatnot, and I remember my 6th grade art class, and I, like we got to do such cool stuff. Like we got to do lino carving and stuff like that. And it just had a blast with that. And I remember all those experiences too. So I think after, getting to know what you did, I don't even know how we got into all that with the art. Like you were making puppets, and
well,
I started like helping you out with puppetry. And
almost anything I've ever done, you've always been there asking questions.
We do create together. That way,
and a lot of time, I mean, I will tell this story is this: if I'm working on something that has to be finished, like for a show, generally what happens is I get to a point where I can't figure something out,
Jenna comes by, looks at it, and says, well, why don't you do it this way? Which is generally the easiest, simplest way that I have overlooked at this point. I said,
Yeah, we both complicate things very.
I'm very good at overthinking and over-designing stuff. So she's very good at seeing. So she has gotten into it.
Yeah.
So Jenna has, you've gotten into it that way.
Yeah. It was funny because, like, I've always been around that art world, and I've liked that art world. Just like seeing painting or, doing this or that.
But we're museum goers.
Yes, we are museum goers.
And
We've always
more so
liked
than
that.
I, as a child.
Oh yeah, my parents raised us. Yeah, my mom was a history buff, so we had to go to every museum, between here and Pennsylvania, because that's where we usually are going. But we spent a lot of time up in Canada and the whole realm up there. So, but yeah, definitely we saw a lot of museums growing up, and but not a lot of art museums, like more history museums.
But still, it's
part of our culture, yeah.
Right, but it's still the idea that
yeah,
you're exposed to a lot more art.
Yeah,
even in a history museum. Yeah.
I think my mom was an artist, and like she was a fiber artist. I mean, like all the way. She loved to sew. She loved to knit. She loved card weaving.
Yeah,
she was the whole of the, what is that name of that?
And the Family Workshop.
Yeah, the Family Workshop
anthology series of books from the 1970s.
Yeah, that was her thing, man. We had to do a lot of that kind of stuff. But she was always very creative and also a musician. So I mean, the older I get, the more I am like my mom, I know.
Right.
But I think, I don't know if it was my teaching gig that started it first, and then we started doing puppetry. I don't remember which came first, truthfully.
I don't either.
But I didn't start. I started, we lived in Wisconsin for a while, and I started, I make a joke that I was a swimsuit model for an art class. That was fun. But when we were there, I went back, they asked me to teach a college level intro to music class. And I was like, okay, because I was there and I was a person who had knew about music and taught me, I had never taught it before.
But you had a music ed degree.
Right. So I had a music ed degree, and they were like, we need a warm body in there teaching this stuff, and I was like, okay, fine. And so I started doing that, and then I got the teaching bug. And so once I think I got the teaching bug, I think I became a lot more involved in thinking about art and creating art. Right. And then when did you start going to the Eugene O'Neill stuff?
That was mid-late 90s. That was when I was in
at Bowling Green.
Yeah, it was that late. So it wasn't until...
So that is actually when I started with it.
Really?
Yeah, because you were going to do that short with your about your grandma and
Oh, right, that short puppet piece I wrote. Right.
So it was in Wisconsin, I think, because I remember sitting at the table in Wisconsin doing that sculpture.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
So that's what happened. Is you were doing you were kind of involved with the puppetry through your graduate program, and that sort of got me back into like doing like the sculpture part.
That's right. And you sculpted the faces of those three puppets.
So I sculpted the faces of those three puppets that you used in that program. And I was like, I love this, And then when we lived in Massachusetts, I started doing wire art because I liked Calder Alexander Calder, and got inspired by that. But it all kind of happened through... When we moved to Massachusetts, I worked as a coffee shop person, a barista, whatever. And then I ended up getting a teaching gig. So I wanted, after doing the Wisconsin teaching, I was like, I really want to do this, So when we went to Massachusetts, I got licensed and to teach music again in Massachusetts, because you have to get relicensed every time you go from state to state. And so I took the tests, did the whole thing, got my license back, and then I ended up teaching it to Catholic schools, just music. And then the next year I went to just the one Catholic school, and their art teacher had to quit a couple of weeks before school started. And I said, I'll do it. And they're like, okay. So I ended up teaching music and art at that school for a few years. And that's really, really when I got into the more artistic part of my, like the actual fine arts and the visual arts part of things. So that sculpting thing, I was like, I'm pretty good at this. I can do that.
Yeah.
And then just in teaching other people, you learn how to do things better so that you can teach them. So it was a pretty heavy learning curve. I got licensed to do that too in Massachusetts. I took the tests and studied and did all that business. And because I like to be legitimate that way. And I ended up doing, learning a lot through teaching those kids. That was a kindergarten through seventh grade program. So I got to see a lot of different, I got to learn how to plan for, that
skill set.
Yeah, exactly. And so then I started getting into the wire art, and then I did,
And her wire art is probably one of my favorite that she's ever done. They're weird and wonderful, and she does her wire art. She just takes one piece of wire and bends it up until it looks like a face, and they're beautiful.
Oh,
they are. They're amazing, and I think
I know that's your favorite part, and it's weird because it's one of those things that I tried to go back to at one point, and it was like I couldn't get it. And I think it's just one of those things, again, as artistic inspiration, you got to be in
the mood.
It's so hard to create just, like in the same medium all the time. For me, like I think one of the things that artists have a hard time with, and I have ADHD, and we're finding that out a lot more now.
As we get older, we
and we learn about our neurodiversity. I know I've had ADHD for a long time, but for me, and I think for a lot of artists, and my sister and I talk about this because she's the same way, that we're like, ooh, I really like this kind of art. I'm going to try this. Like, I'm going to try doing beading. I'm going to try painting. I'm going to try watercolors. I'm going to try art, wire art. I'm going to try wool felting. So I've done all those kinds of things, and I like them all. I will say that painting to me is kind of therapeutic, though.
Right, but you're right. You go through phases of different materials.
Yeah.
And you don't go back to them a lot.
No, and it was really hard. Like, after you said that about the wire, I was like, I should try another wire piece again. And I got it out, and I was like, I don't know.
I don't want to try another wire.
I'm not feeling it. I am not feeling this. So I don't know. It was very difficult to maneuver the wire at that point because I wasn't sure. Like, the things that inspired me at the time when I was creating those is you and I work off each other, and that was, you loved clowns, and so I'm looking at this picture of this wire thing of a clown.
There's a couple of them up there.
You love like the commedia masks and the
there's a Laurel and Hardy ones.
Yeah, like all those silent movie things, and so that's sort of my inspirations for them, were to try and create some. I will say the best one I made, my friend James Lumsden has
the
yes, which was the lion, which I love that piece.
And it wasn't wire; it was all
wire. Yeah.
No, but wasn't it safety pins? Was that the safety?
No, I did make a safety pin lion after that because I like lions. But
so you've done a couple of those.
So I have, but that one was all just wire, and it looked really cool.
Yeah,
I love that one.
Yeah.
And then we were for a time trying to sell our art, and we're doing the whole by the tent and sit and try and
the craft
sell things.
Show thing, yeah,
the craft show thing. And they were gracious enough to come by and buy that one. But that was one of my favorite ones. But
yeah.
But so, I think it's just the constant, if you're an artist, sometimes you just find that medium that you really love. But I think all artists actually love
exploring
like more than one medium.
Yeah.
Like they want to do stuff in more than one medium.
It's interesting. I was recently on the podcast, Caitlin Boshart. She's a life coach, but she talks about multi-passionate artists.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that we don't have just one thing, one art. We're not transfixed, but that's the wrong word. But we're drawn to so many different things.
Yeah.
And would you consider yourself that kind of multi-passionate?
Yeah. I mean, I think I am. I mean, my kids...
because it sounds that way. I mean, that's why I bring it up, because it certainly sounds that way.
My kids at school always ask me, what do you like to do more? Do you like to teach music more? Or do you like to teach art more? And I can't answer their question because I like both for different reasons.
Right.
So, and I do believe music is a storytelling art form. It is art.
Right.
It could be technical, and it could be academic, it can be all those things, but it is art. It is us taking what we feel inside and creating something to let other people know.
Right.
Or at least to relate to other people. And art, in my opinion, is in visual art too, is for me, visual art's more about an individual view of what, like what I feel like in that moment, I guess.
Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, I guess it's the same thing, music.
I think music, art, painting, wool felting, hat making, whatever, they're all communication devices. Yeah. They're all languages too.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I do some of these things, I've just been getting into the little diamond dot things, right? So just because it's fun and I like textural things. I love shiny objects. So I started with that with kits and stuff, with a kit or two. And then I just started free drawing, kind of freehand and stuff, which I enjoy more. And I find with the wool felting, same thing. I started with there's a little book on wool felting. Let's wool felt an animal or something. And then after that, I looked at the wet felting stuff and I thought, no, that's more me. I'm constantly trying to tell a story. That just flipped a switch in my brain, but that's what I'm trying to do.
That's great.
Do you know what I mean? Music, I'm trying to tell a story.
Right.
I'm looking at some of the paintings that I've done and I'm trying to tell a story. I've got birds, I'm this kind of tranquility type of thing. The faces, I'm fascinated by faces, first of all, in artwork. I love faces. I will buy anything that has a cool and interesting face on it. That's the kind of art I want. Landscapes aren't necessarily, I'm not as drawn to landscapes as I am to faces.
Right.
But I think it's because of that, because it's a story.
Interesting.
And I think I just realized that out because I was just thinking of this piece of fiber art that I had over here, this wool felting thing that I did. And it was, my attempt at that water felting, and I was like, okay, this has to tell a story. So I have fire at the bottom, I have water at the top, and all that stuff. And so, I'm just realizing most of the things that I do are my attempt to tell a story of some sort.
Even in a tiny, tiny way.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of abstract art. Gracie likes that abstract art, and she likes that Mark Rothko with the color thing and all that stuff. And I'm like,
Gracie being our daughter.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah,
to mention that, but I think, and then Maggie's also our daughter, and she likes the storytelling part of it.
She's
more the storyteller, and so. I think through my art, I've always wanted to tell a story of some sort.
Interesting.
I just realized that.
Now,
thanks for the interview.
Thanks for the answer. Now, do you think that's going to change?
No.
How? That's not going to change. Do you think it's going to change how you approach your next project?
Maybe. I mean, I'm looking looking around our room here, I've got paintings, I've got wired art, and I've got this sculpture of this face over here, right?
Yep.
So, but I'm just looking at all of it, and it is all telling a story of some sort, isn't it? You
It
know?
is. Well, yeah.
So yeah, I think maybe having that revelation, I will probably do that. Yeah, it probably will change the way I look at what I'm doing.
Okay. Do you think it'll change how or what materials you use? What format? Or do you have any clue yet?
No, I think in every format that I do, I actually naturally do it. So, you know what I mean? Like I naturally am telling it, but I think it might clarify what I'm, like if I'm looking at a painting and I want to tell the story in a painting, I might be more in tune with the details of that, of how am I telling that story? What's the story I'm telling?
And that might be a premature question to ask. I mean, just
I think that's a developing kind of.
So
that's
we'll find
developing
out.
news.
Yeah,
we'll find out in the future.
Do you have any like inspirational people, muses or heroes or?
I think my first hero in terms of music would be my mom. My mom taught me a lot about music, and I remember singing with her and her playing the guitar and the two of us singing together, so I think she was one of my heroes. Mr. Nichols was my high school mentor, and he just is a genuine soul and really taught me a lot about music I think people now, when you become an adult, you realize the kind of experience you had in a small town school, and he's having us singing, the Hallelujah, not just the Hallelujah chorus, but performing Messiah,
the entire Messiah, right.
As a high schooler, and just more complicated works and whatnot. And so I think that experience was really good for me in terms of art. You're always a hero of mine in terms of art. I mean, just watching how you do things and create things, and artists and art in general. Just again, I don't know. It's kind of hard with the art part. I mean, I love artists, and I'm inspired by artists.
Right.
Like we have this love affair with Austin Kleon and his Steal Like an Artist book, because it makes a lot of sense to us. You
Highly
look at,
book.
like you read, or you're actually connected to all these artists as you go through, right?
Sure.
It's like your interpretation of something that's already been done, right?
Right. But then
how unique but at the same time,
my interpretation has never been done.
Right, exactly. At the same time, completely unique.
Right.
So that's kind of, I don't know. The art or hero is kind of hard. I mean, I love Van Gogh, but
sure.
I mean, I don't consider him a hero. I think he's just
but at least
tragic
inspirational.
and inspirational life. Yeah. The fact that he was able to, create things even though he wasn't well and wasn't
right.
But yeah.
What about your art that turns you on?
I kind of use my art as therapy. Do you know what I mean? Like when if you see me painting a picture a lot of times, I mean, I'll be zoned in right on that, So it's a way to kind of calm myself down sometimes and just, get into that space. Same thing with sculpture. I'm very tactile. Like I like to be, sculpting to me is a very super calming thing to me. It's just, I get in this zone and I feel really good and really happy doing that. So I guess I would say that that's what I like about my art. Same thing with music. I love teaching. I think teaching is an art. obviously. And I think,
I would wholeheartedly agree with you.
And I think that, to me, seeing results through my, like seeing kids understand things because we've talked about it, and I've helped them to be more involved in music and just in life in general, and learn about each other and whatnot. I mean, I think that's also something I like about, specifically with music. I love to teach piano. I like to see my kids' growth and how they, what inspires them in the classroom,
Right. Anything about your artwork, about your art, that turns you off?
Yeah, I'm not very good at it. No, I'm not supposed to be self-deprecating. I know.
I'm cutting that out.
No, I know. What turns me off is not having enough time to do it.
Oh, certainly.
Kind of wishing that there was, like, one of the things I love my art, and I love all of our artwork that we have, but at some point it's like, I want to, like, who do we share this with? We're telling our stories. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but like a better way to share it with other people, I guess, maybe.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd say.
Yeah, I think there's a community out there for us that we haven't met yet.
Yeah, I
terms
think
of
that's
this kind of
probably
stuff.
true too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would say those are kind of the turn-offs. I mean, there's always never enough time to do it. I'd love to be an independently wealthy person and just do art and sit on the seashore somewhere in my cute little cottage, and have my big sunny, room facing the ocean, and
Yeah, I'm working on that. So.
that sort of thing. That would be my ultimate spot to create. But
okay, last few questions. Is there any art? I mean, you've dabbled in a lot of different types of artwork and art forms. Is there one out there that you haven't done that you would like to try?
Well, I would like to be. I like the lamp working thing, which you bought me a bunch of books about that. In creating like little glass sculptures,
small
and
glass
beads
beads,
and stuff.
yeah.
I could done the fused glass, which I think was pretty cool, and I've got like a really cool little kiln to do small fused glass pieces, which is kind of fun. Again, though, I always keep running into that same problem of what do you do with them once you make them?
That should never be part of the equation.
I know it shouldn't. I know it shouldn't, but my practical side sometimes overtakes me. So, but also, yeah, I mean, just creating, I think maybe creating mosaics with glass, like I just love glass and shiny things. And I love collage and mosaics. That's an area I don't do a lot. I haven't done a lot with, but I'm always interested in it.
Okay.
Like
now,
it's always, and that again kind of goes to that storytelling issue.
Right. Now, the mosaic, is that kind of feeding into your little dot?
A little bit, yeah. But I think it's a classier version of the dot. I mean, like, the dot is using a manufactured thing, that it's terrible for the environment too, which is kind of bad. But whereas mosaics could be stones, it could be crystals, it could be, recycled china, recycled glass, that sort of thing. So that part appeals to me a little bit more, I think.
Interesting.
And I like the idea of making a picture with these little pieces of glass and, I don't know. I like collage. I love collage when I see people do, cool collages. It's because the texture thing. I love texture. So.
Sure.
But
is there any art form that you would never want to try?
Performance art.
Now, you're a performer. What do you mean by performance art?
Well, like that weird, when you talk about people, I don't know.
Okay. I was on another podcast with my friend Julie Wyatt.
Oh, yeah.
And she actually has a degree.
Oh, that's right.
In performance art.
Sorry, Julie.
And one of the phrases she used on that podcast was, I'm okay with doing stuff like getting naked and rolling around in peanut butter. She thinks that's art. And so is that what you're talking about?
I'm not saying it's not art. It's not a form of art that I would want to do. Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm
fair.
talking about.
Okay. We'll steer
No
Julie.
offense, Julie. Love ya.
Okay. Why do you participate in art? Or why do you practice art?
I think it's really, really important. We talk a lot about how education in our family because we're both educators as well. And I think art is what first off makes the world a better place. I think we talked about how academics teaches the basics, but art is how we help, that is how we interpret those things. It's how, like you give them the tools, but now this is what you use to.
Art is the application process of
is the application of the tools, right? So that is why I practice art. I think it's really important that kids understand music. I think music is such a huge part of our life, and they're not aware of that. And it can be used as a, like I said, music is a way for us to connect to other people. It's a universal language. It is, BTS is kind of one of those, it might be a popular group, but it also shows you that this is something that transcends, cultures and whatnot. And so passing that along, I think, is really important. I think every kid should have that outlet of, we talk about how, what kind of music does anybody listen to music when they're cleaning their room? Does anybody listen to music when they're angry? Does anybody listen to music when they're sad? When, like all those kinds of emotional connections in a world where empathy is a commodity right now that we don't have. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to give them that, to give them help them to understand that, and how music can be used to express their emotions and things. And the art is the same way. Art is a internal on paper or on whatever medium you're using. Get that stuff out. Like let's see who you are inside. And that's what art does, like visual arts are for kids. And I think it provides them, every kid has something to say. Every kid has, it doesn't matter what their skill level is. It doesn't matter what their, it doesn't matter what their skill level is. It doesn't matter if they do a great job or not a great job and whatever. That's all relative, right? That has nothing to do with anything, but to provide them with that opportunity to tell their story is really important. So that's why I do it.
The answer to that question was all geared at helping others. What about yourself?
Why do I do it?
Yeah. Is there... and then not that I'm...
Because I have a story to tell.
Because I think both answers are admirable, but I'm just curious about you as a person.
Well, I think because I have things to say. I mean, I would use it the same way. I'm like looking at, again, inspired by the things around me, and I love certain things, and by putting it out there and creating something, is showing people who I am and telling my story and helping people know. Like, I love birds. I got a lot of bird paintings.
You have a lot of bird paintings. That's true.
I love flowers. Skies. I love...
we have a lot of flowers.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. That's why I do it.
Thank you very much for taking the afternoon.
No
sit
problem.
Down with me. I've been meaning to talk to you for a long time, and it's been... I'm actually very surprised at what came out in the interview here.
Me too.
In the sense that this little artistic discovery of yours and your storytelling DNA. It
is because you lived with my dad, storytelling master, right? like extraordinaire. Grace, Maggie, our daughter, storytelling extraordinary. So I did not realize how much of my art is about me storytelling, but that's what it is.
It is very much so.
So that's kind of cool. It's a
very
cool
cool.
discovery. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thanks for hanging around and geeking out with us. If you enjoyed the show, hit the like and subscribe buttons. And more importantly, join the conversation and leave us a message or comment. We'd love to hear about your nerdy art. Thanks again, and join us next week for more Art Nerds.